guys, I'm Frank Cox, the barbecue pit engineer, and this is the SmokerBuilder podcast. On today's video, I'm going to show you how to set up your basic paint situation and all the stuff that I use whenever I'm painting a drum smoker, Super55 drum smoker that is. Stay tuned. Okay guys, welcome back. Like I said, I'm Frank Cox. I'm the barbecue pit engineer, and this is the SmokerBuilder podcast. Appreciate you listening and watching and all that stuff. Real quick, I'm going to tell you today about how I set my basic paint situation up for painting drum smokers and things like that. Now, full disclosure, I have no formal training in auto body or painting or anything like that. Just about 13 years of messing paint jobs up. That's where all this information comes from. If you really want to hear some really good information after this video, there's another podcast episode where I interviewed my buddy Daryl Stites. It's one of the older videos from about a year ago or so, and that video goes into a lot of technical details about setting up paint and cleanup and all of that. And what you learned in the last video I did is how important the prep is on your bare metal drum. Now, the paint I'm going to use today is going to be a direct to metal paint. And there's all different kinds out there. There's tons of different manufacturers, all of that stuff. And it really doesn't matter. I go for the most affordable paint that I can get on the fly. You know, we can spend $13 to $20 a quart, or we can spend $200 a gallon. So it just depends. I've done both. And in my opinion, this other paint here from Rust-Oleum works pretty darn good. What I do like about it is I don't necessarily need a high temperature paint on a drum smoker. If you're going to cook below 400 degrees, this paint works just fine, as long as you have the heat shield in place and the block and the baffle plate in place. Now, if you're going to get up in the above 400 range, I do recommend some high temp paint, or don't paint the thing at all and use linseed oil, because it's going to really develop a nice color and patina over time. So anyway, this paint, you can get this at pretty much any Rust-Oleum distributor dealer. I go to Menards and get this, and this particular can I'm holding is a tintable paint from them that is direct to metal. Now, what's important to know about that is they've got color cards hanging on the aisle at wherever the paint is sold, if they do the custom tinting. And that card tells you the colors they're limited to. Now, if you get a really, really good paint guy, he can kind of mess with it a little bit, but you're gonna lose that the tint guarantee is what you're gonna lose if he starts going rogue. I've told him before, add a little more red, whatever. But the other thing to know is that I am colorblind, and so I really have a hard time trusting my senses when it comes to colors. So I either have to rely on others or use the card, and that's what gives me the comfort zone to know what I'm doing. So this paint right here, Rust-Oleum, this one here was about 20 bucks is what this quart was. Now you can brush this on, you can roll it on with a roller. I've done the roller method, but what I actually prefer to do is use what's called an HVLP gun. Now I got this gun all took apart. What's important to know about a gravity feed HVLP gun is that the more you spend on a gun, the better the gun. Now, we're not doing, like I said, body shop work in here and stuff like that. So this is one of my old guns I used to use. I think this gun is literally less than $20 at Harbor Freight, the blue one. The difference is that when you're pulling on the handle, the control of the needle as far as how much paint comes out, the size of the tip, all of that stuff matters as far as getting a good fan pattern. And what happens is this nozzle has two air streams that blows like this at the paint that's coming out in a straight format. And as it comes out, it atomizes a little bit and then it straightens that flow. And so if this is pointed this way, you've got a vertical fan like this. And if you want, you can loosen this while you're painting and rotate that. And you can change the fan pattern to be like this. That's one really good benefit to a gun like this. Another thing is you can thin your paint enough to where whenever you're spraying it out, it lays really good and really flat. Now this is just a smoker. It's not a car. We're not worried about the paint being like, you know, car show classic paint here, but we're going to try to do the best we can. So One more thing is like I said, with these guns, the lever action on the needle, like you can feel a completely different action on this gun. This is about a $70 gun compared to that $20 gun. But you've also got more control with these knobs and stuff. Like this is how big the fan is. This one right here controls how much paint is allowed to leave the canister and go down into the nozzle. This one here controls how much air is being allowed to go into the gun. Now you can get really fancy and get things like this regulator here, which I actually broke this one. That's why it's not hooked up. And I'm trying to make do. That's why it's not on here. But this regulator will show you how much pressure. Now this is an HVLP gun, so what that means is high velocity, low pressure. So it's going to have high velocity of air, but it's going to have a much lower pressure of air going into the gun. You can only have like 29 PSI or less going into this gun, or it's going to do weird stuff to your spray pattern. Now, one more full disclosure statement. I might or might not show you here in a few minutes, as of the moment I'm recording this video, my spray pattern that I use. I may not show you that because I actually kind of suck at it, right? And I always wind up with this thing called orange peeling. I don't know if it's my eyesight or if it's my patience or that I just don't know what the hell I'm doing when it comes to mixing my paint, but we're going to find out. So there you go. A wise man once told me, spray less at first and then put more on top, right? So you layer your paint. You don't want to just go in there and coat it completely. And I think that's a lot of my problem is patience, honestly. I should take my time. I should do multiple coats, but I'm in a hurry usually, and we got deadlines and we're trying to hit them. And the paint really does actually look darn good when I'm done. So anyway, here we're going to get into some of the chemicals and stuff like that we use when we're painting. By the way, if you're a professional body man and you hear, or paint guy, and you hear me say anything that's not correct, please feel free to leave a comment and let me know. You don't have to be hateful, but you can sure correct me for the sake of the viewers, right? But like I said, as of this date, this is how I do it, right? You'll also notice that I don't have a big fancy paint booth with a big heater and all of that stuff. I got 2 Academy tents that are zip tied together, and Aaron and I put plastic around here, and it's worked very well. At that end, I'll show you here in a little bit, we've got a filter that the air has to go through when it comes in. On this end, when we're feeling ambitious, we close it off, and we have a fan, a $21 box fan that's inside that plastic that forces the air out of the booth as we're spraying. It's really important to get enough draft going so that it's a safe environment and stuff like that, but also overspray and things don't collect on other parts as you're spraying. And you always want to start upstream of the air and work your way down towards the exiting side of the booth. That way, as you're leaving the booth and the air's leaving the booth, then all of that vaporized air and all the dust and anything like that that's coming from you and the gun is going downstream and getting ventilated out of the room. We're going to get into these chemicals here. So right here I've got mineral spirits, I believe is what this is. Yeah, mineral spirits. I always have something like mineral spirits or acetone, sometimes both. Now the way that you know what you need, it's clearly explained on the back of the can. When you get down into the, I'm not going to show you here, but if you get down in here, it's going to tell you about the paint right here. It's going to tell you painting conditions like the weather, the temperature, the material, stuff like that really does matter. Preparation of the material. And then it's going to get into some technical details about the application of the paint. So that's when you're going to want to start paying attention. I usually skip all of the other information because I showed you that in the last video. And we're going to get right down into this right here. So let's see, painting, stir thoroughly. If thinning is necessary, thin material only with mineral spirits or acetone. Now, not all paint is compatible with mineral spirits or acetone. You need to read that clause and make sure what it is. Now, what will happen is if it's the wrong thing, it could cause the paint to not stick. And what I've seen in the past is you'll see this in that one video that I talked about with Daryl, is we were talking about paint wrinkle. So like you get this really nice paint job, you walk away, you come back, and the paint has actually retracted and wrinkled up off the surface. Usually that's an adhesion problem caused by either surface prep or something to do with chemical makeup of the paint, or something else that is like off-gassing. So as paint is curing, the chemicals and stuff in the paint, like the mineral spirits, the acetone, the fumes, they're all trying to get out. And the moisture, it's trying to dry out and cure. And so if for some reason the paint is applied wrong, that would cause that problem. So anyway, this one says mineral spirits or acetone. And then it says thin no more than 5%. Apply with a good quality brush, roller, or spray gun. They said good quality, not body shop quality. So that means my trusty old Harbor Freight HVLP gun in the $70 range is perfect. Now, whenever I take a gun apart and clean it, I put all my tips in here like Daryl told me to do in that video. And then I've got this open end right here that I just leave exposed so we don't wind up with a bunch of wet stuff in there causing trouble. So I've already put this gun together. There's an extra fitting on top of this. Now this fitting goes with what's called a disposable canister. You can get this whole entire setup at Harbor Freight. And what it does is it simply, once it's put together, it literally just presses in place and you can turn it, boom, like that, and it's locked in. Then I can take it off and throw the liner away. And what's really cool about that, this canister and this comes in the starter kit. And then you can just drop this disposable sleeve in there. It makes cleanup a breeze. And then you've got this nice filter on the outlet of the canister. Boom, like that. And then this all screws together. So today we're gonna mix our paint. We're gonna stick it inside this little funnel thing here. And then I'm gonna be in the booth painting. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix this up. Now the way that I do this is I use a mixing cup like this. And I'm a standard imperial numbers guy, and so because I'm in the US of A, and so we've got ounces instead of liters and milliliters. And so I'm using 20 ounces because it said 5%, right? So 20 ounces, easy math is one full ounce will get me 5%. Anybody that's a smart math whiz can check that out, but that's my math anyway. I've already stirred my paint and shook it real good. And I'm gonna take this cover off. And then you can see we got a really pretty color of blue. This is Brendan Lamb's paint actually for his Super 55. And then you're always gonna want a funnel, which is over here. A funnel filter. And what this is gonna do, there's all kinds of air and debris in the air around us and stuff that's around the can and all of that. So we're gonna use this right here. And you're gonna place it inside the top of your little doodad here. Now we're gonna watch as I fill this up to 20 ounces. In my experience, to paint a 55-gallon drum smoker, 20 ounces is more than enough, but it's also easy math. So here I go. I'm just gonna pour that right into that. And you can see by all the paint spills on the ground around me, I'm not a good aimer. Boy, this stuff is thick. This just means we're gonna have to thin it a little more than 5% probably for it to come through the gun. Now the reason we thin the paint is so that not only it sprays well, but it also lays well. So you're gonna have to be careful so you don't get like a bunch of runs. But with the cheaper paint guns and thicker paint, you'll notice a splattery kind of spray pattern coming out of the gun. And that's why we're thinning it out. We don't want it to come out in globs. We want it to come out, pretty thin, lay real nice, and it'll actually gravity will help the paint level out as it's going down the barrel. In my experience anyway. I could be wrong. Some people would call that runs, but we're not putting so much on it that it runs. Get impatient. You just don't want to overfill your funnel is all that's happening. As long as you don't overfill it, we're good. So you can see that this mesh is filtering anything bigger than that micron number, whatever it is, 20 microns, out of the paint, so it does not go into my canister. And then you always want to keep your paint can close so you can transfer easily into the other can if you got too much in the filter. We're almost there. Just a little bit to go. We're there. Bam. Okay. Now, the thing to note is you're never going to mix your thinner in the can, the can the paint came from. Reason for that is because if we mess it up, now we mess the whole entire amount of paint up. We're not going to contaminate it, anything like that. So we're always going to mix it in a separate container, especially that we can measure with. Now we're going to use some of this mineral spirits. I almost said acetone because that's what I was using the other day. And I just keep a little cup like this around, and I've got the old Cajun injector that nobody uses when you buy the injection stuff. And then I just use, it's got a measurement on here, 1/2 ounce and 1 ounce. And so what I do, just to keep my measuring accurate, because I'm a good old boy here, and I'm not in a scientific paint laboratory, I'm just gonna take this here and dump some, because I'm gonna use it for cleanup later anyway, so I'm not worried about having too much. Always cover that back up, and then we're gonna pull out until we get this 1 ounce in the cup. And I don't care if there's air in it, it's not a big deal. It's just a matter of getting my measurement right. And actually, I told you this is really thick, so I'm gonna go a little heavier than that. And it might show itself in the result of my paint. And so I'm just dumping that right down in this little canister here. We got about, you know how when they do recipes and they're like, put some, you know, it's a little more scientific than that, but you know, what I call hand grenades and horseshoes close, they're two different kinds of closes. Horseshoes have to lean, so they're much closer. Anyway, here we go. Now you're gonna stir that up real good. You're gonna get it all to where it's a consistent viscosity. Viscosity is how the stuff flows, how thin it is. And it's like mega thin. You can come up here and look, Joe, if you want to. You can see how it's real good and flows and moves real good like that right there. You know, I always pick my stick up just to make sure there's no other colors that didn't get blended in. Make sure there's no thick junk floating around. Okay, buddy. All right, now, I like to filter twice. So we filtered going into this cup. We're gonna filter coming out of it, going into my cup, whatever's going on, our canister, whatever's going on my gun. So here I am, I'm really stirring this here some more because I really believe in stirring. I want to make sure that thinner is down in there. And honestly, I think it could go just a little bit thinner than it is right now, but I'm going to roll with it. Only problem is you never know, because if this was actually a car and we were getting paid like by car money to paint this car, we'd have to really be careful and make sure that that was the right viscosity. That way we don't wind up with orange peel, because if we had orange peel, we're going to wind up sanding, and nobody wants to sand. See, I got another filter right here. Good roll of paper towels is important to have around. Now, once again, I've got my disposable canister holder thingy, and I've got a liner in there. I'm going to put this funnel in there, and I'm going to pour this out into that funnel. Much thinner than before, filling much faster. That's going to help us lay the paint really nice. You can kind of see that coming out of there. You guys asked the color. I don't know what the color is. I can't tell you. It's blue. Maybe it's green. I don't know. I'm pretty darn sure it's blue, though. Yeah, we're just going to pour it all in there. And we're going to paint Brendan's parts real nice. So if you didn't need this much paint in the, you know, for your parts, which actually I'm sitting here just running through that math in my mind right now, and I'm not painting the whole barrel, I'm painting parts. So essentially I just wasted a bunch of paint is what just happened, because I could have mixed about 10 ounces and did a 1/2 ounce of thinner. Instead, I chose to do the full thing. So the good news about these little cups, though, is that there is a little plug. So if you mix too much, I'm going to find one here somewhere, hopefully very fast, over here. There's these little plugs right here. So when you're done with the paint, you can literally just take the plug and you can just stick it in there like that, and you can save your paint. Now, there is what they call a pot life. Pot life is how long the paint will last mixed in the pot or the mixing pot or whatever. And so that's important to know. You can't like just put it on the shelf and use it next time. You got to use it pretty quick. I'm not sure what the pot life is on this particular kind of paint, but I'm sure Mr. Rust-Oleum, if he's watching, he could tell us. All right, so we're going to pop our little strainer gadget in there, put our little lock ring on. All right. Check that out. I can't get it in there. There's always something I'm fooling with on one of these videos when I'm doing this that I can't get to lock in for some reason, you know, like the threads aren't getting on there right. Bam, there we go. Now, what we do now is we pop our gun in there, and you can kind of see here. It's got these little knurls, boom. And then you push it in, and then you can just tighten it. Bam, it locks in. Make sure it locks in. Now we don't have to worry, the gun will hold the paint. Brilliant. The other thing will happen is as paint comes out of this, what's gonna happen is this little liner in here is squishy, and it's gonna be able to suck down, so it easily sucks down. Cups like this, they have a little air spot up at the top, and you gotta be careful when that's open so you don't spill paint. This one won't spill. As a matter of fact, when I'm done with this gun, I literally can just take it and set it like that and not worry about it falling over. So anyway, I'm to the point now where I need to put some kind of thing on my face so I can breathe in that paint booth. And of course, I've got my old respirator here. Now this is a respirator I got from Harbor Freight. It's really affordable, super cheap. This particular filter, there's all different ones. Some are for biological stuff, some are for airborne. I can't remember what they called it, like it's for sprays and aerosols. Make sure the one that you're getting blocks 100% or like 99% of the aerosol stuff. And that's what this one said it does. The thing is I almost always get leaks around this part where my nose is, and you'll see like a line there. But when I go home and blow my nose, I don't have blue coming out. So that's a good thing. Always be careful with this kind of stuff. The aerosols and stuff will kill you if you're not careful. Actually, before I put this thing on, let's go in there and talk about the gun and the pattern and all that real quick. Okay, guys, I'm in the booth here. You can see it's nothing fancy. We usually test our spray pattern on the wall, which I'm going to do here in a minute. Something you're going to want to do is hang your parts in such a manner that you can get around them. Now, as I'm spraying, some of these things are going to flop around a little bit. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a piece that's going to be about that's bolted on, and I'll just kind of steady it with my hand. And then a lot of times I'll spray from the bottom up in linear motion with it, and I'll try to keep that from flopping around too bad. If your air velocity is low enough, you're not going to have like a lot of pressure blowing parts all over the place. Now, another really important thing to know about painting like this is light. I've already got eyesight problems. I'm colorblind, so it's really a challenge for me whenever I'm in a booth like this painting. Really, this thing should have lights kind of aimed sideways all the way around, and that would help a lot. But instead, I carry a light around with me, and I shine it while I'm spraying because I don't have a bunch of wiring and stuff down here. This part hasn't actually been wired yet. So then we've got the booth right here with the back. You can see the filter down there on the bottom and all the duct tape. The duct tape is on there to kind of put some kind of a seal around it. That's that regular hog's hair mesh. The catch here is there is sawdust and there's leaves blowing around and stuff and bugs. And we're just trying to keep something here to keep those bugs from getting in here and all that stuff and sitting on our paint, because they're not going to land here. They're going to land on that damper blade. That's the thing that's the most attractive in this booth to them, is wherever the fresh paint is. And they're going to land right there. So there's our little box fan. Here in a minute, I may or may not hook this little fan up. There is a hole that matches that piece of plastic, or matches the size of that fan, and you can see the duct tape tracks. So whenever I'm in here painting, I can turn that fan on. It's going to suck air through the booth and blow it out there. And, this plastic would then be closed and duct tape shut with a little hole in the curtain right there for us to get through. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. For the sake of the video, I'm probably not going to close this off, just so Joe can be in here with my phone and my phone doesn't get covered with paint and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get my respirator on, and then we're going to paint. So guys, I'm getting ready to put my respirator on, but I wanted to show you something real quick. Something that you're going to want to do is have some kind of moisture collection and a filter on your air coming out of the compressor. And it's even a good idea to have one closer to the booth wherever you're painting. My compressor is way far over there, and I have to drain it every single day. Harbor Freight has some really cheap like air filters and desiccant dryers and stuff. And they even got the ones I showed you a minute ago that I broke that usually go on here. They're good for about one use, and you got to throw them away. They cost about $4. Anything you can do to combat moisture and particulate from your air compressor is mucho beneficial. So anyway, that's going to make a huge difference in the appearance of your paint job. So we've got our filter and stuff all put on back at the compressor that way. So Anyway, for anybody that was wondering about that. So now here I'm just going to hook my little gun up. Now you can hear air already coming out. Watch this. So we're looking at the pattern. So see how fine and tight that pattern is? Can you see that, Joe? Okay, Joe's holding the camera for me. So now we can adjust our fan. And you can see that one adjustment. So here's tight. That's pretty tight right there, right? So now we're going to make a wide fan. See how much wider? And I just turned it a quarter of a turn. We can turn it up. And you can see how big of a difference it makes on that fan. The other thing I'm looking for is my pattern as it comes out. You can see multiple. I want it to be pretty thin coming out. That's why we test on this wall all the time. If it's too thin, you can open up your flow, and then there's a little jam nut here to make sure that it stays put on this gun. Now, the more paint comes out, the more splattery it's going to get. But if you did a good job with your mixing and you thinned it enough, it's going to go ahead and kind of like level itself out. My personal belief, not educated in painting, my personal belief is that that's because there's too much paint and not enough air, or it could be too much velocity. I don't know. But as long as that paint's misting out, I've got control and I can do multiple coats to get it right. Okay, so I'm gonna mask up and I'm gonna start painting. Just kind of pay attention to my pattern. Like if I'm coming up and down, I'm gonna make sure and turn my nozzle to where my pattern is like this. If I'm going horizontal with sweeps, I'm going to have my gun turned like this to where my fan is vertical. The other thing you're going to want to make sure to do is when you're spraying, you want to keep, like for instance, look right here. When you're painting, you don't want your gun to sweep like this. That's not sweeping. That's actually going to just cause you heavy and light spots is what that's going to do. When you're painting, you want to keep your gun, your spray, your fan perpendicular to the surface you're painting. So you're going to rotate with your wrist and keep the gun consistent as you sweep. The other thing you'll hear me do, sometimes on a barrel, you'll hear me keep the gun pulled, the trigger pulled, and I'm compensating with my overlap is what I'm doing there. So in other words, I don't want to, if this square is my deal, I don't want to come up and stop right there and then change directions and come back, because then I'm going to have heavy paint and then light paint and heavy paint. What you're actually going to do with your spray pattern is as you're going, you're going to, if this is the stop, the edge of the barrel, you're going to continue and then let go out here. And then you're going to pull the trigger again and come back down. You want to start your spray off of your part is what basically we're trying to do, especially on little things that you can wind up putting a lot of paint on. So anyway, bear with me. I can't see. I don't know colors and stuff like that. This is going to be entertaining for you, so watch. Here we go, intake. It's also good to have a light that works. Okay, one more thing here before I get started. You're always going to want to paint the nooks and crannies and trim in the holes, the spots that are hard to get to first. Then you're going to go back over those with the final coat on everything else. So in other words, where these forms are, I'm going to rotate my gun for a horizontal spray pattern, a horizontal fan. And then we're going to go from here, we're going to go up, stop, and we're going to pull it again and come back down like that. And the stop for me has always been about just like getting control and saving a little bit of paint. If I just keep spraying out here, I'm just wasting paint out in the middle of the air. But anyway, here we go. Like I said, you got to kind of face it sometimes. Fan's too big. There you go. You kind of see how that goes. And I can't do the bottom without turning it up. So you know, I can hear all you body shop guys in the comments right now. Frank, I tell you what, it's okay. It's just barbecue.
Oh, that's right.
That's why I can't see. I don't have my glasses on. Where are my glasses at? Okay, hang on. So here's another trick. Come over here. You need to have a wire hanging to hang your gun on. Because if you forget your glasses, you got to go out and get them.
There we go. Let's do this. I'm serious. It makes a huge difference having being able to see. Oh yeah, that looks awesome. So we can always put more on. We can't take it off. So don't get crazy putting a lot of paint on.
All right, guys, that's kind of the drill. I'm going to go ahead and close this booth up and get to painting now. And here in a little bit, once these parts are dry, we'll break back in here and show you kind of what they turned out like and talk about how the paint laid. So anyway, hope you appreciate this video so far. It's been a challenge for me because I'm colorblind and stuff, but we're getting through it. So anyway, stay tuned and we'll be right back. All right, guys, we're back. It's been overnight, so I haven't seen these parts yet. Let's go ahead and get in here and check it out, see what we got. So this is what I was talking about keeping the booth all, closed up. I think I sagged overnight, whatever, but here we go. All right, let's see what we got here. Out here in the daylight. All right, so let's see, let's pick an intake here. Oh, good, I didn't forget to get the top. I almost always forget. But you can see, can you see that, Joe? The texture that it's got? I don't know if you can get a good picture of that in the light. Let's change direction maybe. So anyway, I'm really happy with that paint job. You can see a little bit of a texture in how the paint laid. That's a little bit to do with my fan, my air pressure, things like that. You're not ever going to be able to completely eliminate that. So if you really want to get rid of that, now we're talking multiple coats of paint, wet sanding in between coats, a lot of extra work like that. Now this particular paint is not really a good fit for that. you're going to want to go more automotive paint at that point. Now, I don't really think that that's a problem as far as temperature range on a smoker. I've painted a lot of smokers with a lot of cool paint, expensive paint, and I haven't really had much problem except on stick burners with that. So as far as this paint goes, it's pretty much, just put it on there. You're not going to do like multiple coats or anything like that unless you just have bare spots. But it's a super easy paint, and you can see by my process, I'm not really too stressed out about the details. The best thing to know is there's no bugs in this or no dust. Like, it's a really clean, good looking paint job. Better than rattle can. Let's say it that way. How about? So anyway, I hope you guys got a lot of information out of this video. If you have any questions at all, make sure and hit them in the chat. Just so you know, we do have a private community full of guys like me that like to build smokers. And we'd like to have you aboard. So if you go over to SmokerBuilderu.com, that's SmokerBuilder, the letter U.com. If you go over there and you can request to join, we don't let all the spammers and the knife guys and all that silliness in there. It's just guys like us. So you can get in there and post your own projects. You can get feedback on it, and a lot of help from our community. So anyway, appreciate you guys. Until next time, keep your smoke thin and blue, and we'll see you on the next podcast episode.